When the envelope arrived, it felt like the universe had finally rewarded every sleepless night I had spent buried under textbooks and self-doubt. For years, I had lived with one goal in mind: to escape the suffocating walls of my small house and the shadow of my mother's constant disapproval. "You're wasting your time," she used to say whenever she caught me studying past midnight. "Girls like us don't get into fancy universities." But I didn't listen. I worked part-time at the town library, tutoring neighborhood kids just to save up for application fees. I wanted to prove to myself that I was capable, that I could make something out of my life even if no one believed in me. That morning, as I left for work, I saw the mailman stop by our gate and drop a bundle of envelopes into the box. My heart skipped. I knew it was around the time universities were sending out decisions. I told my mom to keep an eye on the mail and rushed out, trying not to let hope make me foolish. When I came home later that evening, the kitchen smelled like tomato soup and she was humming. Too calm, too normal. I asked casually if any letters had come, and she shrugged, saying, "Just bills and junk mail." I glanced at the counter. There were a few open envelopes, nothing that looked important. I believed her, or maybe I wanted to believe her. Days passed, then weeks. My friends started sharing photos of their acceptance letters. Smiling faces holding golden envelopes flooded my feed. My heart twisted every time I saw one. I checked my email every morning, refreshing the page like an obsession. Nothing. My mother would notice my disappointment and sigh dramatically. "You see, that's why I didn't want you to get your hopes up. Not everyone is meant for college." Her tone carried no sympathy, only satisfaction, as if my failure proved her right. I started to believe her. Maybe I had overestimated myself. Maybe I wasn't as smart as I thought. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, wondering where I had gone wrong, replaying every mistake, every missed answer, every test I could have done better on. One afternoon, while my mom was out grocery shopping, I decided to clean her office. It was the least I could do, I told myself. She always complained about the clutter. The room was a mess. Stacks of old magazines, unopened mail, and receipts from years ago. As I sorted through a pile of papers on her desk, something caught my eye. A white envelope buried beneath a pile of catalogs. The logo printed in gold ink sent a chill through my body. Stanton University. My hands froze. For a moment, I thought it couldn't be real. I pulled it out slowly, and my heart pounded so loudly I could hear it echo in my ears. The envelope was sealed. My name was printed neatly across the front, Emma Wilson. My breath caught. I ripped it open with trembling fingers, and there it was. "Congratulations. We are pleased to inform you of your acceptance to Stanton University." The room spun. My knees gave out, and I sat on the floor, clutching the letter like a fragile piece of my soul. The joy of acceptance was instantly drowned by betrayal. My mother had hidden this from me. She had stolen my moment, the moment I had dreamed about for years. My vision blurred with tears as I tried to make sense of it. Why? Why would she do this? Did she think I wasn't ready? Or did she simply want to keep me under her control forever? Rage replaced shock. My hands shook as I stormed into the kitchen just as she walked in with her groceries. "You hid my acceptance letter," I shouted, my voice breaking. She froze, eyes darting to the letter in my hand. For a split second, guilt flickered in her eyes, but she quickly masked it with calm indifference. "Emma," she began slowly, "you're not ready to live alone. College is expensive. You would have struggled. I was protecting you." Protecting me? I could barely contain the fury in my chest. "You lied to me! You made me think I wasn't good enough. You let me hate myself for weeks." My voice cracked, but she didn't flinch. Instead, she put down the grocery bag and crossed her arms, her expression firm. "You'll thank me one day," she said coldly. "The world isn't kind. You think you're strong enough to survive out there, but you're not. I've seen girls like you fail and come crawling back. I won't let you ruin your life chasing dreams that lead nowhere." Her words sliced through me like glass. For a moment, I saw the truth. Not about me, but about her. She wasn't protecting me. She was protecting her control, her power. I had been her project, her dependent. My success would mean her irrelevance. I stared at her, and something inside me shifted. "You don't get to decide my future," I whispered. My hands tightened around the letter until it crumpled. "You don't get to steal this from me." Her eyes narrowed. "And where will you go? With what money? You can't even survive without my roof over your head." I met her gaze with quiet defiance. "Then I'll find my own roof." That night, I packed my clothes, my savings, and that letter. I didn't have a plan, just the burning certainty that staying meant dying a slow, invisible death. My mom didn't try to stop me. She stood by the doorway, arms folded, as I dragged my suitcase out. "You'll come back," she said flatly. I turned, meeting her eyes for the last time. "If I do," I said, "it'll be because I made it, without you." Then I walked out into the cold night, the letter clutched tightly in my hand, the wind carrying away the last remnants of the girl who once needed her mother's approval. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew one thing for sure. I'd rather struggle on my own path than live safely in her cage. As the streetlights flickered above me, I realized that this betrayal was my beginning. The road ahead would be cruel, uncertain, maybe even lonely, but it would be mine, and that was enough. The next morning, the sun rose on a version of me that no longer belonged to the house I left behind. My suitcase felt heavier than my body, filled with everything I owned, and nothing that tied me to home anymore. I had $500 in my account, a crumpled acceptance letter in my bag, and a stubborn hope burning in my chest. The bus to Stanton City rattled through endless highways, and I watched the world blur past my window like pages of a story I was finally writing myself. I didn't know what awaited me. Fear, struggle, loneliness. But anything was better than staying where dreams went to die. As the skyline of Stanton appeared in the distance, tall buildings glimmering under the morning light, I whispered to myself, "You're free now. Emma, don't look back." Finding a place to stay wasn't easy. The campus dorms were full, and most apartments demanded security deposits I couldn't afford. After a day of searching, I found a shared flat above a bakery. My room was small, barely enough space for a bed and a desk, but it was mine. That night, I sat by the window, looking at the lights from Stanton University glowing across the city. The gates stood tall, golden letters spelling out the name that had haunted my dreams. I wasn't inside yet, but I promised myself I would be. I hadn't come this far to stop now. The next morning, I visited the university's administration office. My hands trembled as I explained what had happened, that my mother had hidden my acceptance letter and that I was desperate to still enroll. The woman at the front desk gave me a sympathetic look before asking me to wait. Minutes later, the admissions counselor called me in. She listened quietly as I spoke, her expression shifting from disbelief to pity. When I finished, she leaned forward and said, "Your acceptance is still valid. We were surprised you never replied. If you can cover your late registration fees, you can still start this semester." My breath caught. "You mean I can still attend?" She smiled softly. "Yes, Emma, it's your place. Don't let anyone take it from you again." That moment changed everything. I walked out of the office trembling, not from fear, but from gratitude. But reality struck quickly. Late registration fees were expensive, and I was already running low on money. I picked up every part-time job I could find, cleaning in the evenings, waitressing on weekends, tutoring high school students online at night. My days blurred into exhaustion. I'd leave work smelling like dish soap, walk back to my room with aching feet, then stay up studying for placement exams until dawn. It wasn't easy. Sometimes I'd stare at my empty wallet and wonder if I'd made a mistake. But then I'd think of my mother's voice saying, "You'll fail without me." That thought fueled me more than any meal ever could. By the end of the month, I had enough to pay my fees. The first time I walked through Stanton University's gates as a student, I felt like the ground itself was blessing my footsteps. Everything smelled like fresh beginnings, new books, coffee from the student cafe, the rustling of leaves in the courtyard. But reality was unforgiving. Starting 2 months late meant I had to catch up on assignments and readings that everyone else had already completed. I was constantly behind, barely sleeping and living off instant noodles. Yet every time I looked in the mirror, I'd whisper, "You did this, not her." Those words became my mantra. My professors quickly noticed my dedication. One of them, Professor Hart, pulled me aside after class one day. "You've got potential, Emma," she said. "Don't let exhaustion steal it from you." Her encouragement meant more than she could ever know. Slowly, I began to find my rhythm. I balanced work, classes, and studies like a juggler afraid to drop even one ball. And somehow I didn't. I started excelling. My essays got top marks, my presentations stood out, and my classmates began asking me for help. That's when the idea came. I could use my tutoring skills online, not just to earn money, but to help others like me. I created a small YouTube channel called Study with Emma, where I shared notes, study tips, and motivational advice for students struggling without support. I didn't show my face at first. I was too afraid. But I spoke honestly, telling stories about someone I knew who had been held back by family but kept going. The comments started trickling in. This helped me so much. I thought I was alone. Thank you for reminding me I can still try. Within a few months, I had thousands of followers. My pain had turned into purpose. For the first time, I felt truly seen. But my mother hadn't disappeared. She called every week at first, leaving voicemails that began with guilt and ended in anger. "You're being dramatic," she'd say. "You're making me look bad." Then she'd soften, pretending to care. "I'm just worried about you, honey. You don't have to struggle like this." The first few times I couldn't bring myself to respond. Eventually, I texted her back one simple line. "You lost the right to worry when you hid my future." After that, the calls stopped. The silence was deafening at first, but it was a relief too. I didn't need her approval anymore. Months turned into semesters, and I built a new kind of family, friends who believed in me, professors who guided me, and an online community that cheered me on. I learned that strength isn't loud or dramatic. Sometimes it's the quiet act of choosing yourself, again and again, even when no one else does. My grades soared, and so did my confidence. I even got a scholarship by the end of my second year, which meant I could finally quit one of my jobs and focus more on my studies and my channel. I used part of the money to buy a decent laptop, recording better videos, editing late into the night with music, and hope. One evening, as I uploaded a new video titled "Turning Pain into Power," I looked out my window at the same skyline that had once terrified me. The city that had seemed too big now felt like home. I thought about the girl who had left her house with nothing but a suitcase and a dream, and I smiled. I had built everything from the ground up, piece by piece. My mother had tried to bury my ambition, but she didn't realize that seeds grow best in darkness. And now, I was blooming. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a survivor. I felt like a creator. My life wasn't just about proving her wrong anymore. It was about proving to myself that I was capable of creating something beautiful out of betrayal. And as I turned off the lights that night, exhausted but fulfilled, I whispered the same words that had carried me this far. "You did this, Emma. All on your own." 4 years later, I stood beneath the grand archway of Stanton University, the same one I used to stare at from across the street when I first arrived in the city. The banners swayed in the spring breeze, fluttering gold and white, while graduates in caps and gowns hurried around me, laughter and relief filling the air. My heart thudded with disbelief. I had made it. I had survived. I had conquered every sleepless night, every moment of doubt, every whisper that said I couldn't do it. Today, I wasn't the scared girl who ran away from home. I was Emma Wilson, valedictorian of the class of Stanton University. As I adjusted the tassel on my cap and looked at my reflection in a passing window, I barely recognized the woman staring back, confident, poised, and free. The ceremony began under a sky that looked painted with light. My name echoed through the speakers as I walked across the stage, the applause of hundreds of people surrounding me like a storm of validation. My hands shook as I accepted the diploma, smooth, heavy, and real. Every hardship, every tear, every dollar I earned cleaning tables or tutoring students online had led to this exact moment. When they called me to deliver the valedictorian speech, the crowd quieted and I stepped up to the podium, heart pounding in rhythm with the microphone's faint hum. I looked out into the sea of faces, friends who had become family, professors who believed in me, strangers who had shared in my journey, and began to speak. 4 years ago, I said, I arrived at this campus with nothing but a suitcase and a dream. I thought success meant being accepted by others, but I've learned that real success is accepting yourself even when others don't. My voice didn't waver. Sometimes, I continued, the people meant to protect us become the ones we must protect ourselves from. But we still rise. The crowd erupted in applause, and as the sound washed over me, I felt something inside finally heal. Then, in the corner of my eye, I saw her, my mother. She was standing in the second row, half hidden behind another parent, her eyes glistening with tears. For a split second, my breath hitched. Time seemed to freeze, dragging me back to that night I left home with nothing but a letter and a suitcase. She looked smaller now, older, fragile even. Her hands clutched a crumpled tissue, her shoulders trembling as she watched me. I didn't know whether to feel anger or pity, or both. After the ceremony, the courtyard filled with families taking photos, laughter echoing everywhere. I stood alone for a moment, just breathing, trying to absorb everything. Then I heard her voice, soft, uncertain. "Emma." I turned. There she was, standing a few feet away, her expression a mix of pride and guilt. She took a hesitant step forward. "You look beautiful," she said, her voice quivering. I didn't answer. She smiled weakly. "I've been watching your videos," she continued. "Your tutoring channel. You've helped so many people. You've done so well." Her eyes filled again, and she whispered, "I'm proud of you." For years, I had imagined this moment, what I would say, what I would feel. But now that it was here, I didn't feel anger. I felt clarity. "Why now, Mom?" I asked quietly. "Why are you here after everything?" She swallowed hard. "Because I realized what I did was wrong. I thought I was protecting you. I didn't want you to get hurt by the world. I didn't think you were ready." Her voice cracked. "But I see now that I was wrong. You were ready. You always were." I stared at her, memories flashing, her hiding the letter, her dismissive words, the loneliness that followed. "You didn't just hide a letter," I said softly. "You hid me. You made me believe I wasn't enough." She covered her mouth with her hand as tears rolled down her cheeks. "I know," she whispered. "I've hated myself for it every day." She reached out to touch my arm, but I took a small step back, not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. "Mom," I said, "I'm doing fine now. I found my path." She nodded slowly, understanding. "I can see that." There was no dramatic apology, no cinematic reconciliation, just two women standing between the past and the future. For the first time, I realized I didn't need her forgiveness, and I didn't need to give mine. I just needed peace. "I'm glad you came," I said finally. Her lips trembled into a smile. "So am I." And with that, she turned and walked away through the crowd, her figure fading into the chaos of celebration. I watched her go without tears, without pain, only a strange, quiet strength that came from knowing I had survived the storm she created. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the city skyline, I stood on the balcony of my small apartment, graduation cap beside me, phone buzzing with notifications. My tutoring channel had exploded in popularity after someone posted my speech online. Among the messages was an email from a publishing house. They wanted to turn my journey into a book. I laughed in disbelief, clutching the phone as tears of joy spilled down my cheeks. The same hands that once held rejection now held opportunity. The world that once felt too big now felt open, waiting for me. Later, I sat at my desk and uploaded one final video for my subscribers, a personal story I had kept hidden for years. I titled it, "She Hid My Future, But I Built It Anyway." I spoke about resilience, about finding strength in the ruins others leave behind, about turning pain into power. When I finished recording, I hit upload and watched the comments pour in. Hundreds of people sharing their own stories of betrayal, of being held back, of finding freedom. "You gave me hope. You reminded me it's not too late. Your story saved me." Each comment was a reminder that my suffering had a purpose. As night fell, I looked out the window, the city lights glittering like a constellation of second chances. For the first time, I understood that revenge doesn't always mean destruction. Sometimes it means building a life so full, so radiant, that the people who doubted you have no choice but to see what you've become. My mother had tried to cage me out of fear, but I had learned to fly without her wings. I closed my eyes, letting the wind carry away the last trace of bitterness. My story wasn't about her anymore. It was about me. The girl who lost everything and built something greater. The woman who turned pain into purpose. The dreamer who refused to be silenced. I smiled to myself and whispered into the night, "You did it, Emma. You really did." And for the first time in my life, the world finally whispered back, "I know."